There's all sorts of words that the left has for people who are traitors to a certain identity. And I can't say some of them, but race traitor comes up a whole lot. At left-wing protests, you'll see activists go up to like a black cop and they'll scream at him and call him like a race traitor. And apparently this is because, well, here's what I think. I think the left is overwhelmingly collectivist, which means you must be a part of the hive. Otherwise, you are in violation of the hive. And because the left is overrun with identitarians, they use identity to identify those who should be in their hive. So you end up with certain words and phrases, race traitor being the one that I'm able to say without risk of getting my channel in trouble, but there are others. Some people just will flat out use racial slurs. So I have this article by Zuzanna Moroz, who is a Polish transsexual conservative. I think she's from Poland. And she wrote this article from The Spectator, Why Can't Lefties Tolerate a Transsexual Conservative? And I'll read this. I want to read this because I find it very interesting. I know Zuzanna. I hung out with her when I was at the Tommy Robinson event, and I did an interview with her about the event and her perspective and things like this. And it's interesting that there are a lot of people who are conservative, not far right, not alt-right who are conservative, like Ben Shapiro, for instance, who won't use the she, her pronouns for transgender people. I personally see no problem with referring to someone like Zuzanna as she, her. And there's actually people who have organized, there's conservative trans women who were in Portland, who were in Berkeley. And this is the craziest thing to me because, that's fine. That's not what's crazy. What's crazy is how the left attacks them. That's what this article is about. There was, I want to highlight this too, but there was one of the rallies in Berkeley was organized by a trans woman who embraces diversity and just opposed Marxism. And these people got physically attacked. There was a young Hispanic man who was attacked by Antifa. And it's always so baffling to me. It's not really baffling, but you have white anti-fascists who claim to be anti-racist, who claim to support trans people, but heaven forbid, these people are conservative. And this is one of the problems I have with the left, right? Now, a lot of people seem to refer to left and right as the tribes, and I disagree with that. I don't think I'm part of any tribe, but my politics align as social liberal. The issue is, when I look at someone who claims to be fighting racism, but then they attack people who are minorities and they happen to be white, I'm like, yeah, you're a hypocrite. When they claim to be supporting trans rights, but then as soon as they find out the trans person's conservative, now they're mad at them and now the person's a traitor, hypocrite. Like, look at Candace Owens. Candace Owens is a black conservative woman, and oh boy, do they love to hate on her. So she has an opinion. Like, this is what blows my mind. I don't care if you're transgender. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. I don't care if you're non-binary, right? A lot of people disagree with it who are conservative. Personally, I just don't care. But what matters to me is your ideas, your principles, your willingness to stand up for what you believe in and to be consistent. And I see too many people on the left who are good people, who are friends of mine, who refuse to call out intolerance when they claim to fight intolerance. They have no problem attacking conservatives like Ben Shapiro when he says there's two genders, they'll attack him. But then when you actually have someone like Zuzanna Moroz, who is a transsexual conservative, all of a sudden they're gonna ignore the abuse this person gets. They're gonna ignore the fact that people on the left are attacking this person. So let me read a little bit of this story because I've got a couple more stories I want to point out. Why can't lefties tolerate a transsexual conservative? This is in The Spectator. And Zuzanna writes that, I am a conservative. I believe everyone in society does best when government takes a light touch. I believe in low taxes, less regulation, the rule of law, national sovereignty, strong borders, individual liberty, personal responsibility, meritocracy, tolerance to people's differences, and traditional family values. And I think, for the most part, I think a lot of people agree with that. It's kind of crazy to think that defines conservative, but I guess less regulation is like the thing that stands out there. She writes that she is also a transsexual woman, but those on the left regard her as Judas. And they do so because they don't fit conveniently into their insatiable and pathological need to stereotype everyone. To them, the very notion that a trans woman, because they're different and a minority group, could be anything other than a Mao-quoting, Che Guevara t-shirt-wearing, red flag-waving socialist is sacrilegious. And then she points out that they call her a traitor. Jesus, I don't even want to say that, but they've called her a house tranny, or more crudely, a fascist. This is what I'm talking about. In Portland, there was a Proud Boy, and he looked like maybe former military of some sort, and he was a black man. And they were yelling racial slurs at him. I don't know exactly what they were yelling, but the dude was pissed. And there was a lot of people said it was cringy, but a white dude, grabbed his hand and said, I see you, my brother. I don't see color. You're my American brother. And then he was like, I see you too, my brother. And a lot of people were like, they thought it was cringy. But I actually thought it was awesome. You know, this dude was being attacked by racists. Like, okay, let's talk about the narrative real quick. In Portland, Antifa was yelling racial slurs at a black man, and he was furious and wanted to fight them. And a white man, a Proud Boy, took his arm and said, "You're my brother, and I don't see your color. You're here, you're my American brother, don't let them make you angry." And he was like, "You're right, I see you too." And it's just so funny that if I were to tell someone I was in Portland and saw people screaming racial slurs at a black man, they'd be like, "Oh, it must have been the neo-Nazis." No, actually, it was the anti-racist people screaming racial slurs at the Proud Boy. Look, I don't know who is more of what or whatever. All I can tell you is that there are a lot of people on the left in Portland wearing dumb shirts and waving Stalin flags, and you had dumb people on the Patriot Prayer side wearing Pinochet shirts, which I think was just ridiculous. But there are a lot of good people on both sides, and that's true. It's just that extremism makes everyone crazy. But it's fair to say, what I did hear from the right in that instance was homophobic slurs, and I thought it was funny, I guess, and people on the left were yelling racist slurs at people. And I'm like, you want to ask why I'm not on anyone's side and why I don't agree with everything? That's why. Because there are people who ironically do Nazi salutes. I'm like, dude, you're not helping anybody. And so I'm not gonna align with the group. And not only that, I just don't agree with politics for the most part. Like, there's no tribe where I fit in anyway. And I don't want to fit in because I think most people are nuts. But I'll say this. If a bunch of, right-wing, conservative, or even far-right people want to have their First Amendment right and go march around, yeah, well, that's America. Even the ACLU agrees. If Antifa wants to show up and yell racial slurs at some of these people because they think they're racist and one of the dudes happen to be black, yeah, you're wrong about that. But you see what they yell at these people because they won't accept that someone who fits the supposed identity they're trying to protect, they won't accept that those people are going to be conservative. And what's crazy is, look, you can look at what Susanna says about low taxes, less regulation, the rule of law, sovereignty, strong borders. I look at that and I'm like, none of those things say that you can't be transgender, you can't support diversity or anything like that. Now, I think traditional family values, I'm imagining a lot of conservatives are going to say, "Oh, how are you transgender?" in that regard. Well, look, you have an argument. The point I'm trying to make is I don't want to get into that specific issue. I want to stay focused on, and by all means comment, but I want to stay focused on the issue of there are people who are supposed to be on the left, and they get real angry when you're not. Because, according to the narrative, like, look at what happened with Trump in South Africa. He says, "I ordered Secretary Pompeo to look into what's happening in South Africa and white farm, land expropriation." And all these journalists start screaming Nazi. Except some of these journalists actually wrote about the same thing months ago. And I have to wonder, how is it that Newsweek can report on something, and it's fine and no one cares, but as soon as Trump says it, it's a conspiracy theory? Well, the issue is conservatives are supposed to be white. And if they find that, you know what happens when, like, Candace Owens speaks up because she's conservative? They call her, like a token conservative, like a token black person. Like, how insanely racist is that? Just because you're transgender, just because you're Latino, Asian, black, white, whatever, you can believe whatever you want. Like, your skin color doesn't define how you're going to vote. And that's what really blows my mind. Let's read on a little bit more. I've got another article I want to point out too. And then I'll say this right now too. I'm going to put a link to Susanna's YouTube channel and the article that I've pulled up here in the description so you can go and read it. Because, you should. So Susanna says, "And so coming out as a conservative was an entirely more tumultuous affair than coming out as trans. If only there were a chapter in Dale's Carnegie seminal, How to Win Friends and Influence People, that offered helpful advice on such matters. Two factors more than any others that chiseled and honed my conservative worldview were growing up in a post-communist country and taking personal responsibility for making the best of being born in the wrong body." And what's really crazy to me, and look, let me say this, I'm not a trans person, and there's probably a lot of non-binary people. If you want to chime in, by all means comment. But I've talked to trans people who tell me, as a trans person, they believe there are only two genders. And the reason for it is, the argument at least, and this is a really touchy subject that I'm trying to, be light on, but I was told by a trans person, if you're arguing there are more than two genders, and that a man and a woman can have any genitalia, you're sort of erasing transgender people. And this is not a mainstream transgender view. It's like, but there are people who say, if they feel like they're supposed to be female and they want to transition, you're actually arguing against that, saying that they shouldn't get surgery, they shouldn't get hormone therapy because women and men can have any characteristics. So the idea that, this idea actually starts erasing people who are taking hormone therapy. Again, an argument that was told to me, and I'm trying to be light on it because I do not have the experience of a trans person, and by all means, don't know. But I'm not going to finish through this article, but I encourage you to click the link and go check it out. But I want to point out this story from the Washington Post. Yes, Antifa is the moral equivalent of neo-Nazis. Okay. This story got a lot of flack because clearly that can't be true. But I understand why. And this is by Mark A. Thiessen, and he writes, this is last year actually, he said, last weekend in Berkeley, California, a group of neo-communist anti-fascist thugs attacked peaceful protesters at a No to Marxism in America rally, wielding sticks and pepper spray and beating people with homemade shields that read, I kid you not, no hate. That actually happened. They had shields that no hate and they were beating people with it. Like, that's like a fire truck on fire. I'm sorry. Silly, silly people. The Post reports how one peaceful protester was attacked by 5 black-clad Antifa members, each windmilling kicks and punches into a man desperately trying to protect himself. Members of the Berkeley College Republicans were then stalked by Antifa goons who followed them to a gas station and demanded they get the expletive out of their car, warning, "We are real hungry for supremacists, and there is more of us." And here's the kicker. The organizer of the anti-Marxism protest is not a white supremacist. Amber Cummings is a self-described transsexual female who embraces diversity and had announced on Facebook that any racist group like the KKK and neo-Nazis are not welcome. It's not enough. And this is what really frustrates me when you see the activists who pretend to be journalists coming out and acting like these protests are neo-Nazis. And that's what they're saying. They're comedians who say, Antifa is only attacking white supremacists. I'm sorry. A trans woman who denounces and says neo-Nazis and the KKK are not allowed at this event, and they openly embrace diversity, who get physically beaten by black-clad member. Like, you know what, man? I'm going to say it. These people at this rally, this is what blows my mind, because this happened last year. They're using Antifa. They're using anti-racism. They're hiding behind this mask, and they are being protected by activists in media. Dude, if a trans woman who believes in diversity wants to say no to Marxism because they don't believe in communism or socialism, and then a group of black-clad individuals show up to beat these people, I have to wonder who the real white supremacist, racist neo-Nazis are. Because they're hiding behind the mask of Antifa, but they would attack these people. Yeah. I find it really interesting. Anyway, I've got a couple more videos coming up. Again, in the description below, I'll have Susanna's YouTube channel and the link to her article. Check it out. You can finish the article. I think it's interesting stuff, and I'll see you in a few minutes.